Park number 2 I will be reviewing from the Walt Disney World Resort is Disney's Hollywood Studios. And in this review, I will help you determine if it's worth a visit. The park opened back in 1989, and up until 2007, the park was called Disney's MGM Studios, but since then, it was called and is called Disney's Hollywood Studios. And recently, this park has dramatically improved its ride offerings, including multiple new lands added in the last 5 years. Now, it will cost you a little bit of money to get in here. Tickets, as I mentioned in my Animal Kingdom review, will run you about $100. It is pricey, but that's pretty classic for Disney. And I think in general, the quality of the park and the quality of the rides and stuff like that does make it worth spending that much money. I know, it is pricey, but as I said, I think it's worth it. Now, let's move on to the ride lineup. Hollywood Studios has recently become very strong in this department. There are 2 roller coasters to choose from. The first of which is Rock and Roller Coaster starring Aerosmith. If you follow this weirdly shaped guitar, then you will find the entrance for the coaster. The ride is placed indoors, and it's built by Vekoma, and it's a very fun ride. The experience starts in the queue, as you get backstage passes and then have to board your super stretched limo. Though, as you can see, the pre-show was sadly not operating while I was there. The ride itself starts with a good launch. This launches you from 0 to 57-ish miles an hour in 2.8 seconds. It's a pretty good launch, and then you proceed to do a couple inversions in the dark. Overall, it's a smooth, fun, really good coaster experience. The other coaster is Slinky Dog Dash, and this coaster is extremely popular because it can be enjoyed by anyone. This Mock Rides coaster has launches technically, but they're really pushes. They aren't forceful at all. That being said though, the ride does a lot of things well, and I absolutely loved getting footage of it. I love the red track and yellow supports, and that slinky train is awesome. This usually gets one of the longest waits at the park, which on that note, from my personal experience and from tracking wait times, the waits are pretty long at Hollywood Studios. It seems like there's a lot of attractions at the top with not nearly enough rides to fill out the crowds. There's a lot of great e-ticket attractions, but there aren't as many good but not great rides to just get people in line and not in line for the bigger attractions, if that makes sense. So you might have some waits to deal with. You can purchase the Lightning Lane Fast Pass though. This is recommended. Moving on from the coasters, there's some other great rides here. The best of the bunch is Tower of Terror. This is one of the best themed drop towers in the entire world, and not only does it have great theming and a surprise dark ride scene, but it also has a great drop sequence. Whether this is better than Guardians of the Galaxy California Adventure is up for debate, but what you can't deny is just how sweet this theming is. The atmosphere for this ride is absolutely perfect. Speaking of incredible dark rides, Rise of the Resistance needs a mention. This has a case as the world's best dark ride. The visuals throughout the experience and in the queue really blow my mind. The footage you're seeing here isn't even on ride, this is in the queue. It's a full experience, and it's probably the best ride Disney has ever done. They really outdid themselves with this one. In the same land, which is Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, you can find Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run, which is a pretty unique simulator ride, because you get to fly the Millennium Falcon. I mean, as a kid, who hasn't dreamed of doing this? And now you can actually do it. Star Tours is the original Smuggler's Run. This was the first Star Wars flight simulator ride, and now I think it's pretty inferior and probably could be removed, and I wouldn't care too much. But this ride still does have its fans, and it's very historic. And I definitely know people who have a much greater appreciation for this ride than I do. So I'm not saying it should be removed, but I am saying it's not as good as Smuggler's Run, that's for sure. Switching gears to a different but still awesome dark ride, we have Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. This attraction replaced the Great Movie Ride, and I never rode the latter, but what I do know is that Mickey and Minnie is pretty fun. I love the mix of what feels like a classic Disney dark ride, but with modern technology. I think it blends very nicely. I'm so excited for this ride to be closer to me when it is added to Disneyland next year. I think Toontown will greatly benefit from this addition. The park also has a good shooter in Toy Story Mania and some nice shows. Lines for these attractions, even if they're long, usually move at a pretty good rate. I would say Tower of Terror can have a slow moving line, and you don't want to get stuck on that one when it's hot in the afternoon. That wasn't pleasant for us. This brings me to my next point, and I think this is actually my biggest complaint. It seemed like at this park there was a lack of shade. The park has trees throughout, but it just doesn't seem like they usually provide much shade, so this park can get pretty hot. Especially if you're coming from Disney's Animal Kingdom to Hollywood Studios, then this park is likely going to feel warmer. Maybe it was just a coincidence with the time of day we were there or something, but out of all 4 Disney World parks, this one did feel the warmest. Now let's talk about the food. I think Disney usually does very good food, and here is no different. The ABC commissary I recommend, as I got a couple of pretty good sandwiches there, and the food is pretty high quality as well. Other than that, Docking Bay 7 is definitely worth checking out. This has a good selection of food and it's mobile order friendly. On that note, I highly recommend using the latter. You can do this through the Walt Disney World app, and it greatly helps your food experience, because you won't have to wait in line for any of your food. Now, the park as a whole looks very nice, and everywhere you look, there's usually something to look at. And the theming here is pretty good, especially in the Toy Story Land and Star Wars Galaxy's Edge sections respectively. I want to avoid sounding like a broken record for these Disney park reviews, but Disney really does a nice job maintaining their parks. And it's a great place to just stroll around and enjoy the atmosphere. On another note, I didn't find this park layout confusing. This is always a big plus for me, because if you're getting confused where you even are in the park, then it can make your experience not nearly as fun. I would say that this park is very easy to have fun at. And that's helped by the strong customer service, as again, with most Disney parks, the customer service here is quite good. The employees were, from everything I recall, very friendly and happy to help. Having nice employees always helps you have a great time as well. And in pretty much every area at a park, you could just walk around enjoying the sights and sounds. Speaking of sounds, on kind of a random note, I feel like the music choices here are very good, and it really helps the immersive experience as well. Every section of the park has its own distinct feel, and you know a park did its theming well if that's the case. The best example of this theming wise is in Galaxy's Edge. You really feel like you've stepped away, and if you want to get even more immersed, then book a ticket for the new Star Wars Hotel. So I'm going to start wrapping up this review. This park does a lot of things well, including the rides at the top of their lineup. I think that's where Hollywood Studios' biggest strength is. If you're looking strictly for standout rides, then this might be your favorite Disney park. And overall, while it is not my personal favorite, I did enjoy my time here, and I do think if you're visiting Florida, or more specifically the Walt Disney World Resort, it definitely is worth a visit. This park is one that would be much harder to recommend even half a decade ago, but now they have really done a great job recently with all the new investments. And at this point, it's pretty hard for me not to recommend the place. So those are just some of my thoughts on Disney's Hollywood Studios in Orlando, Florida. Thank you all for watching. See you next time.